Hey everyone, welcome back to another video on my channel. The purpose of this video is to guide you about the steps required for migrating emails from the Google Workspace to Microsoft 365. I will discuss as to what all items can be migrated and are there any limitations to it. I will then discuss about the prerequisites, and finally I will demonstrate the migration process. Alright, so without wasting any more time, let's get into it. So let's discuss what all items can be migrated. So here is the short list, which is mail and rules, calendars, and contacts. The next question is, can the migration be done in batches? So this is very useful if you have numerous users on Google Workspace. So the answer is yes, migration can be done in batches. Alright, moving on. Now we'll discuss about the migration limitations. So here is the complete list of limitations. As we can see, we cannot migrate auto reply settings, we cannot migrate room mailboxes, shared calendars, and if there are any contacts which have more than 3 email addresses, then those cannot be migrated too. Finally, we cannot migrate Gmail tags, contacts URLs, and custom tags. Keep in mind that during the migration process, rules will get migrated, however, they'll be in the disabled state so that user can review those rules and then enable accordingly. Alright, moving on. Let's discuss about the prerequisites for migration. The first one is to ensure that admin account on Google Workspace must have project creator or super user role assigned. Next step is to add a subdomain on both Google as well as Microsoft 365 side for mail routing to happen to both directions. So during our demo, I will show you that the primary domain which I am currently using is ascreations.link and the MX of it is pointing to Google Workspace. I will then create a subdomain which would be m365.ascreations.link. Although I will verify this domain on both Google as well as Microsoft 365, however, the MX would be pointing to Microsoft 365. Then we will need to create mail-enabled users on Microsoft 365. We will then create a new project on Google Workspace, followed by creating a service account in it. Once the service account is created, we'll need to make a note of the unique ID of service account, and finally we will create a key for service account and save the key in form of JSON file. The next step is to grant domain-wide delegation permission to the service account, and then we will add the below OAuth scopes to it. So this is the list of scopes. We have to make sure that there are no spaces while we copy paste. And the last step is to grant API permissions to the service account. So this is the list of 4 API permissions. Alright, so let's jump into the demo. The first task is to add the subdomain on Google Admin Console. We need to click Account, Manage Domains. Here is my primary domain, which is ascreations.link, and I have already added this subdomain, which is m365.ascreations.link. Say if I have to add another domain, I would click on Add a Domain at the top and then enter the domain name. Select user alias domain and hit add domain and start verification. Most likely, subdomain will get verified automatically without having to publish TXT records. Our next step is to add and verify both primary and subdomain on Microsoft 365. I have already added both, but let me show you how to verify a domain on Microsoft 365. Click Add Domain, enter the domain name, and then hit use this domain down at the bottom. I will go with txt records that I will publish to complete verification. So this is the txt record information that needs to be published, and once the records are published, we can then click on verify down at the bottom. Since it's already verified, I'll hit close. Let me now show you how to verify subdomain on Microsoft 365. So I'll just enter the domain name here and then click use this domain. You have the option to either publish txt or mx records to complete verification. I'll go with txt. Let me hit continue. Here is the txt record information that needs to be published. So we have txt name, txt value, and the TTL. I have already published the txt records on my DNS provider. Let me hit verify. It may take few seconds, so let's just wait here. Our subdomain has been verified successfully. Our next step is to create a project on Google Workspace. So let me go to the Google Workspace now. So our first task is to create a project, but since I have already created one, which is called as migration project. However, if you have a need to create a new one, you can simply click new project at the top right and then type in the project name that you wish to create. Once done, you can click create and that will be all. But since I have already got a project created, I'll click on cancel here. Alright, now we have to create a service account under the migration project. So we have to click create service account at the top. Then type the service account name as required. Click create and continue. And now we'll click done. So this will complete the service account creation task. Once the service account is created, we have to make a note of the client ID. So let me just copy it. Our next task is to grant domain-wide delegation to the service account. So I'm logging into the Google Admin Console. In the left navigation bar, I'll expand security, then expand access and data control. Click API controls. Now scroll down to the bottom and then click manage domain-wide delegation. I'll choose add new. Now I have to paste the client ID that I copied in the last step, and then I will also have to paste all the OAuth scopes that I discussed about during the prerequisites. So let me copy paste, and now I'll click authorize. So next task is to create key for the service account. So I'll click on keys at the top right next to permissions and then select add key, choose create new key, click create. Now I'll save this key to the folder. You can choose any folder that you'd like. and then I'll click close. Our next step is to grant API permissions to the service account. Let me click navigation menu. Now select API and services and then library. Now we have to grant permissions to all 4 APIs one by one. So let me scroll down and click Google Calendar API. Then click Manage. And under Credentials, we have to make sure service account is listed. So let me click Credentials. And as we can see, service account is listed there. That means we are all set. Now we will proceed further to grant other API permissions. The steps for the other API permissions are same. That's the reason I'm just doing it quickly. So now I'm working on Gmail API. Let me go back and then choose the other API, which is people. Sorry, let me just do contacts first. Click Manage. Now go back and then look for People API. Alright, so we are all set with the API permissions. I will now create mail users on Microsoft 365. So I am in the Exchange Admin Center now. Let me click Add a Mail User. I need to enter their first name and then last name, display name, then alias, and then the most important thing, I have to make sure that their user ID matches with their email address on the Google side. So let me put their user ID here, and then the domain. I will now create a new password for this user. Now let me click Next and then create. It may take few seconds. Let me click Done. Alright, so mail user is created and both of them should start appearing here within few seconds. In the meantime, I can see both mail users on the Office 365 Admin Center. Our next task is to create migration batch. Add migration batch. Let me call it G Suite migration batch. And then hit Next. Select Google Workspace from the drop-down and then hit Next. We have two options to choose from. Either we can go with automatic or manual. Since I have already completed all the prerequisites manually, I'll simply hit Next here. Alright, here we have to create a new migration endpoint. Let me hit Next. So we have to put any meaningful name here in the endpoint. So let me call it Google Work. And then we can leave the rest of options as is. Basically, the first option, which is maximum concurrent migration, means how many mailboxes can be migrated at the same time simultaneously. And the second one is about how many mailboxes can be synced simultaneously. In here, I have to import the JSON file So JSON file is nothing but the key that we saved earlier. Enter the email address of admin account who has super user role assigned on the Google platform. Let me click next. Let's just wait for a few seconds. Oh, it looks like I may have misspelled the domain. Let me go back and then correct the domain name. Let me hit next. Perfect. So our endpoint has been created. Let me click next. So in here I have to import the CSV sheet which contains the list of users who are going to be migrated. Let me just show you how exactly you need to prepare the Excel sheet. So this is the format that you need to use. It just needs the list of email addresses. Let me save this sheet into CSV format. Now we will import the CSV sheet here. So in the target delivery domain, we have to enter the subdomain, that is m365.ascreations.link. Let me just copy paste to ensure that I do not misspell it this time. So after entering the domain name, the next section is select folders to be skipped or migrated. So in here we can exclude or include any folders that we do not wish to migrate. And then the second option is select items by the time range. So if we have a specific need to migrate emails after a certain period of time, then we can select that time frame here and then hit next. In here we can put the email address of admins who are going to receive notification about batch completion. So as we can see, by default it has picked up the domain admin email address, but if we have a requirement we can add multiple email addresses here. We can also decide when we would like to start and complete migration batch. So as you can see, we can either define a timeline manually, or we can just let the default option be selected, which is automatically start the batch. Same goes with the end of batch timings. We can either let this batch complete automatically, or we can change the time frame. Similarly, we can also select the time zone for the migration batch. And then hit save. Okay, so the batch has been saved. Let me click done. As we can see, the status of batch is currently shows as syncing. So we'll have to just wait for some time because it may take a few minutes to complete the batch. Okay, so I paused the video and then I resumed after about 30 minutes and it still shows syncing. And the users are now provisioning. So I may have to pause this video again and then I'll resume once the status is perfect. Okay, so after waiting for about another 20 minutes, I can see that the data consistency score is now shown as perfect. And if I click on view details, I can see both users' status shown as completed. That means their data has been migrated. So now the next task for us is to add alias to both of the migrated users. I am now logged into the Exchange Admin Center, so I can update alias to both of the migrated users, so they can receive emails when sent to the subdomain, which is m365.ascreations.link. So let me click add email address type. Let me now also check to ensure that the forwarding address is set up correctly to point emails to the primary domain, which is ascreations.link. So let me open the user. This is one of the migrated users. Let me click mailbox and then manage email forwarding. So we can see that the migration process automatically set up forwarding for this user. Let me close it. And same with the other migrated user, which is Len. Let me click mailbox, manage email forwarding. And as we can see, forwarding has been set up automatically for the second migrated user as well. Alright, now let me try to send an email from one of the migrated users to the other migrated user. Let me put the subject test email after migration. Sending this email now. I am now logged in as another migrated user and I can see that email has been arrived from Len. This confirms mail routing is working fine even after migration. Let me now log into Gmail so I can show you that forwarding has been automatically set up there as well. So I'm on Gmail now. Let me click settings. Okay, under forwarding and pop IMAP, I can see that forwarding has been automatically enabled to the subdomain, which is m365 at ascreations.link. And since the MX records of the subdomain is pointing to m365, that means all the emails sent to this user will automatically get forwarded to Microsoft 365. I hope now you have a better understanding on how to migrate and how to plan for domain and subdomain for mail routing to each direction. Now I'm going to share a brief overview about the mail routing scenarios post-migration. So I have two platforms, that is Google as well as Microsoft 365. Let me share what will happen when a non-migrated user sends an email to the migrated user. In such a scenario, emails will get routed to Microsoft 365 environment because of the forwarding setup on the migrated user account. During the demo, I showed that the migration process had automatically set up forwarding on the Google platform to send emails to the m365.ascreations.link domain. And since the MX of this domain is pointing to Microsoft 365, emails will get delivered there. On the other hand, if a migrated user sends an email to another migrated user, emails will get routed based on the forwarding address. And as we saw earlier, the migrated user had the forwarding set up to their primary domain, which is ascreations.link. And for this domain, MX is still pointing to Google platform. Therefore, once the email reaches Google, it will then again route emails back to Microsoft 365 due to the forwarding enabled to the domain, which is m365.ascreations.link. So you may recall the last screenshot that belongs to Google account. Alright, I hope now you have a pretty good understanding of how emails route from a migrated user as well as from a non-migrated user. If you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and do subscribe to my channel for more informative videos as such. Thank you for all the support and bye for now.